So from the actual like writing perspective of it, like for episodes of Family Guy, do you get like a rough idea of like this is the episode, and then you kind of have to fill in like all the jokes or like the funny bits? Is that what you guys are kind of doing in that writing room?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's a mixture of things. So there are different parts of the process. Most of the story ideas come as like a 1 or 2 sentence thought, like wouldn't it be funny if Peter did this, if Peter I don't know whatever a recent one was lately, like if Peter had his arms torn off and they were growing back the entire episode, like wouldn't that be funny? And then we would, as a room, we need 3 acts, for each show. So we would outline the 3 acts, like what kind of scenes would we have? Well, we'd have the scene where Peter was very excited to go out to a dance. And then we'd have the scene at the dance where his arms actually ripped off. And that would be the end of Act 1, because that's like kind of an exciting moment. And then Act 2, it would be like Peter starting to try and deal with the fact that he has tiny little nub arms, and like what would be funny to see him shaking people's hands, high-fiving, trying to play tennis, whatever it is. And then by the end of Act 2, it's like, all right, everybody's sick of Peter having little arms. And then Peter in Act 3's got to like leave town because he feels ostracized. And then how do we get him back by the end of Act 3? So it's just filling in, like, we know we need 6 scenes in each act. What are they generally? And then once we have the outline in place, we can go over more with a fine-tooth comb and say like, okay, well, in this scene, what would be like 2 or 3 funny jokes? And then a writer will go off and write the script with the scenes in place and a few jokes already kind of like pitched out. And then when we get the first draft back, we'll rewrite it. We'll read it at a table read in front of a lot of people. Based on that reaction, we'll rewrite it again, and then it starts to get animated.
So you kind of start out with like 1 or 2 like broad like comedic things that are going to happen, and then you try to write a story where that happens.
Exactly.
Okay, that's cool.
Exactly right.
So I was always wondering, because they're like just writing jokes seems different than like trying to push a narrative. You know what I mean? So I've always wondered how you kind of balance those 2 things.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It is quite a balance, because as sort of zany and joke to joke as Family Guy can be, it is sort of in disguise. It's very story driven. So you have to keep in mind, like, okay, where's the story going? How is it moving forward? But then also within that, there's the freedom to just totally sidetrack and do like a cutaway or
Zany
something.
shit.
Yeah. So it's a nice balance. So nothing is excluded. Like, even if somebody pitches something hilarious that has nothing to do with the story, we can usually find a way to like put it in somewhere.
You guys have like a big bag of cutaway ideas that you kind of throw in?
Joke
like,
bank.
Yeah. We do. We have something called the binder. And
okay.
Yeah. And so like if somebody pitches like a funny joke that's not quite right for a certain area or a certain episode, we'll say, we'll put it in the binder, and then that binder is coming useful a lot. We'll say sometimes, like, we'll be like, well, let's look at the binder. Do we have anything? So yeah, the jokes can kind of live in a sort of purgatory if they haven't quite made it into an episode. And then if they can make it from the binder back into a show, that's pretty cool.
Cool. Do you go through and like purge it every once in a while, just get rid of like, all right, this stuff's just way too old to make like references now? Or
Totally. That happens a lot, where we'll be like, let's look at the binder, and then we'll look at like 6 things on a computer screen, and we're like, all right, we'll get rid of all this shit. Like, I don't know what we were thinking putting this in the binder, but get it out of here.
Can't say the R word anymore.
That's right. Yeah. No, you can't.
Get rid of all the material. Yeah.
We've had that problem.
So when you're working on a show with a really long history like that, how do you come up with new ideas? How do you make sure that you're not covering something you've covered before? Like how do you keep it fresh?
Yeah, well, that's an issue that we face every week, when we're doing stuff. I think the answer to that is, like, again, we have a lot of writers. We try to draw from stuff that happens in our real life, so that the stories are, seem fresh or real in some way.
Possible
and also,
to some extent.
Oh yeah, exactly. And but also we have writers who have been on the show from day one, like from before I was there, from 1999. And a couple of these writers have an encyclopedic memory of things that have been on the show. So they're very good, very useful to have around, because they'll say like, no, we can't do that. We've done that already.
And you did mention the animation. I know it takes like roughly about almost a year from like when you write the episode and draft it up and then you send it to them. You have a problem with like stuff being like topical and no longer topical, like when you get the animation back, or you kind of just roll with it?
Well, we do. And it's a combination of rolling with it. And also we get to rewrite it a few times during its production. So like we'll get another couple bites at the apple before it airs. So if there's some reference that like a year later is like, nobody remembers that already, we have a chance to change it. And also we have a chance to add something that may be topical, and it's only like a month old when it comes out on the air.
Come join the conversation, the show that you've been wanting. Keep it real with no filter. Weekly we share discussions. WWSD, interviewing creative guests, talking the creative process and sharing all the influences from TV and film. Emmy nominated and winning, yeah, they're coming through. Actors and comedians too, directors and writers, way more than a few. Masters of their craft, yes, tune in, you gotta see. This the podcast that you need, WWSD.